Socrates once said, "What most counts is not to live, but to live aright." If the 20th century's dead could speak, what advice would they give us? What might they tell us about a life worth living? The dream of peace, the dream of brotherhood, it is the ultimate hope of humankind. For some people, it's not enough just to dream. For some people, the dream of peace is their mission. Let's celebrate and honor them for teaching us how we can realize the dream.
Angels in heaven gonna change And now the charge. The Morehouse College religious tradition was founded by the Reverend Dr. William Jefferson White in 1867 and was greatly enhanced by the Reverend Dr. Henry Lyman Morehouse, the Reverend Dr. Charles Thomas Walker, Dr. John Hope, and the Reverend Dr. Adam Daniel Williams. It reached its zenith during the tenure of the Reverend Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. Strong Renaissance leadership came from the Reverend Dr. Howard Washington Thurman, the Reverend Dr. Mordecai Wyatt Johnson, the Reverend Dr. Floyd McKissick, the Reverend Dr. Samuel Woodrow Williams, Dr. Charles Radford Lawrence, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. and Jr., and the Reverend Dr. Thomas Kilgore Jr. Because the crisis of character education and character values in America require more ethically and spiritually oriented role models and moral examples, I am pleased to induct you into the Morehouse College Prophetic Religious Tradition, the Martin Luther King Jr. Board of Preachers, Board of Sponsors, and Collegium of Scholars, and do hereby charge and challenge you to be affirmative and appreciative, coherently critical examples for this generation of students, always remembering that our vision is the creation of a global society in which the full development of each individual's potential is the central goal. I charge you to be servant scholar leaders, guarantors of continuity, celebrators of change, negotiators of structure, and facilitators of meaning, with the hope that we can right age-old wrongs that continue to haunt the American people and the world. Lastly, I charge you to use your time, talent, tender, and technology to help usher in an age of peace and nonviolence for the children of the world, to raise another generation of morally inspired leaders committed to building the beloved community, in token of which you are now given these citations, which list 20 global ethical options by which Dr. King and many Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, Jews, Christians, and scientists lived their lives and transformed the world. Testifying to this investiture, in witness whereof, under the seals of the college and the chapel, the signatures of duly authorized officers are hereunto affixed this first day of April 2010, Per Dominum Nostrum Jesum Christum.
I now am very pleased to bring to the platform Dr. Hans Park. Won't you come here, sir? Stand right here. And now our president, Dr. Franklin, Dr. Robert Michael Franklin Jr. will read the tribute to Dr. Park.
We ask that all of you silence your portable devices. To all of our inductees, welcome. You are now permanent members of the Morehouse College family. Dr. Park, your desire to ensure peace and the welfare of the Korean people has motivated you to engineer extraordinary and peaceful feats of diplomacy on the Korean Peninsula. You have been able to do this owing to the goodwill and trust which you have built with the government of North Korea through nearly 50 visits there since 1981, a record unrivaled perhaps by anyone. Indeed, you are only one of a handful of American scholars and even fewer ethnic Koreans who was able to travel to both Korean capitals in Seoul, in Seoul and Pyongyang, on either side of the bamboo curtain. An important example of this is when the threat of war between North and South Korea was at its peak in 1994. You helped secure an invitation for former U.S. President Jimmy Carter to travel to North Korea for talks. Through his visit, Mr. Carter was able to get North Korea leader Kim Il-sung to agree to halt his nuclear weapons program in exchange for discussions with the United States. All governments involved praised the agreement. What's more, it was you who helped pave the way for Mr. Carter's visit and briefed him before his meetings with the North. In fact, you helped avert a disaster. Moreover, your encouragement to the North Koreans to try to improve relations with the U.S. later in the 1990s by extending an invitation to President Clinton to visit resulted in the historical trip to the North by Madeleine Albright, the first ever by a sitting Secretary of State. For these and other breakthroughs in bilateral relations, you have been dubbed the architect of U.S.-North Korean relations by a former American ambassador to South Korea. As a humanitarian, you have endeavored to reunite separated Korean families in China and South Korea, alleviate hunger in North Korea through the exchange of agricultural teams and technical specialists, and to organize shipments of sorely needed medical supplies to Pyongyang. Your childhood experience of displacement from your native Korea, owing to colonialism and war, has made you genuinely empathic to the welfare of all Korean people. This is why you, despite your success as University Professor of International Affairs at the University of Georgia, could not disregard the plight of Korean families who, like your own, had been separated during World War II and continued to live apart in Korea and China. With the blessing of then Chinese Premier Deng Xiaoping, who visited Atlanta in 1979, you traveled throughout Northeast China in the 1980s, videotaping the messages of ethnic Koreans who had lost touch with their loved ones now living in South Korea. The airing of these interviews in the South caused a sensation and resulted in hundreds of families being reunited throughout Northeast Asia. Indeed, you have dedicated your heart and soul to the peace and well-being of the people of your native land. You do the people of Georgia proud with your peace diplomacy and your humanitarian activism. Despite the big impact of your actions, you carry out your activities largely under the radar. This is why we at Morehouse College wish to highlight your achievements today by forever linking your name with those of Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Dr. Daisaku Ikeda.
Now, Judge Richard Brown, Mr. Isaac Newton Ferris, and Mr. Congdon Smith will present to Dr. Park the different parts of his prize.
Dr. Park, on behalf of the Ikeda family and the Soka Gakkai International, I am deeply honored to present to you the Gandhi King Ikeda Community Builders Prize citation.
That's the medal.
The medal. All right.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Dr. Park, on behalf of the family of Martin Luther King Jr. and on behalf of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, I am deeply, deeply honored to present to you the prismatic flame.
Dr. Park, on behalf of the Gandhi family, it gives me a great pleasure to present you with the Gandhi King Ikeda Prize certificate. Congratulations.
This prize does not carry a purse. It carries a library. Many people are not aware, but Gandhi's collected works fill 100 volumes, each averaging 500 pages. Martin King's collected works, when they're finished, will fill 14 volumes. But remember, he left us at the age of 39. But now hear this. The editor of the King Papers project at Stanford, Claiborne Carson, says that those 14 volumes of Dr. King's collected papers will only represent 2% of his work. Okay? And so, Dr. Park, I'm very pleased to present to you these volumes about these three men as a little light devotional reading. Now I'm inviting Dr. Franklin and Chairman Gregory Hall of Political Science to escort Dr. Park to the canvas. Please rise. Hans Sheik Park, because you have no peer for Track 2 diplomacy, known as underwater diplomacy, because you have averted military strikes and engaged in love strikes, because you have helped America cope with the nuclear conundrum in North Korea, not through agreement, but through understanding with your 50 trips across the Pacific Ocean since 1981. Because you have not demonized other nations by calling them an axis of evil, but you have demystified them by calling for global awareness and literacy through study abroad programs across Europe, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Because you were a foreign policy craftsman for Jimmy Carter before he was president and after he was president, living in the active tense. You have reunited hundreds of families of Chinese and Korean refugees, because you have worked for peace and not security. You are not a Homo sapien sapien. You are Homo universitas, or Homo universalis, able to embrace the world and love all of humanity. Therefore, I'm pleased today to induct you into the Martin Luther King Jr. International Hall of Honor and to announce and declare that you are a drum major for the new age of one world. You are a Prince of Peace. Your name shall be immortal. Mr. President, you may unveil the canvas and let the trumpet sound. We're now going to have Dr. Park make remarks. We're right on time.
Thank you. President Franklin, Dean Carter, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I came here with prepared text, but I decided to depart altogether, and also in the interest of time. I truly feel that I don't deserve this high honor. I accept it as a reminder and as an inspiration for me to work harder for peace education and peace in the rest of my life. We don't seem to have a whole lot of time in the world unless we steer the course of history differently. We are not going to have time to embrace the arrival of the 22nd century. We must change the security paradigm. That paradigm calls for alliances and defining a common enemy and striking militarily. And that will not work anymore because small states do claim their legitimate space in history as a sovereign state, and we have a mass destruction capability. So we need to have different ways of arranging world order, and that has to be peace. Unlike security, peace is predicated on accommodation of differences, accommodation of diversities through dialogue, understanding. That's what peace is all about. The great differences that we see in terms of the appearance of these great achievers of peace, Gandhi, King, Ikeda. But you see, the common objective is to achieve peace. Peace should transcend religious, political, ideological, cultural differences. So we must join forces together to achieve this sacred goal, that is the construction of peace instead of security. And then, only then, will we be able to live long enough to embrace the arrival of 22nd century and beyond. Thank you.